Welcome to the Sonoma Hacks website building workshop hosted by Planetaria. So we're going to go over just the basics of planning a website, and we are also going to talk a little bit about how to get around in WordPress to do that. Please note you don't have to use WordPress for your submission if you're used to working already in some other system. Like if you've got experience in Drupal or you're a coder already, Rails, whatever it is, you're welcome to do that. But for those folks that don't have experience in a given website building platform, we will also go over just a little bit about how to get around in and do that. There will also be some discussion about recommended resources for images and code and so on and so forth. So even if you built a website before and the middle conversation about WordPress may or may not be useful to you, the beginning part here about planning a website and the second part here about basic resources should be reasonably useful to everybody involved. So let's talk about planning. So planning is really the most important part of building a website successfully. Of course, next to having the development skills to build a website successfully. But you can be an amazing programmer and have lots of experience and still build an unsuccessful product if you didn't plan it properly. So let's talk about that. I am an information architect at Planetaria, and so I spend a lot of time in these first two stages, discovery and information architecture. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about all the way through. The other thing I want to say is you do only have 24 hours to build your project. So while it's important to do all of these things, obviously you're going to need to do them in an expedited manner. So first, let's talk about discovery and what that means. So determining the purpose of your site and the needs of your users. So let's break that out into some key things that would be important for you and your team to figure out. The what? What's the site main purpose? What's the goal of building it? Why are you doing it in the first place? Some examples are selling a product, getting leads, which would mean like if the key goal is for somebody to contact you and give you their contact information. Communicating a message. Maybe you're trying to get out, just here's all of your local resources for getting vaccinated or something. Whatever the main purpose is, it's really important to narrow in on that. Especially since this is a quick turnaround project. You're not going to want to do something that's achieving, a ton of different goals. Really zero in on what that key goal is. That if it met that would make it a successful project. Next would be who. Who's the main target audience of the site? So part of it being successful is that you set it up in the best way you can to achieve the goal of the site. The other part about it being successful and doing that is taking into consideration who's going to be using the site, because a well-designed site that isn't used is still not successful. And making sure that you've thought about the things that need to happen for that particular target audience so that, based on their age, their gender, their interests, the core issues that they are facing, and you might have multiple target audiences, that based on that, how that might impact, their access to getting to the site, how they might view the site, usage of the site. For example, if I were targeting homeless or couch surfing population, I would definitely aim for mobile. So at this point, folks, especially let's say you're aiming at foster youth, for example, You don't think of folks who are potentially, surfing from friend's couch to couch or going from home to home, that you wouldn't think of them as being people that would have mobile phones, but the fact is that may be the only thing that they have. And for housing authority projects that we've done, the mobile usage is considerably higher in that target population. They're not going to pull out their laptop. So just thinking about that and taking that into your design. Or if it's an older population, that you might need to use bigger font. For example, folks that are selling products, until they really build like a big brand presence where folks know, hey, my goal is that I want to get that product because it's unsaid that it meets this XYZ need. It might be that folks are researching, how to stop my dog from barking. And you happen to have a lot of resources on there about how to, work with a barking dog. And one of the prompts on there is to buy your product, which sprays citronella in order to discourage the dog from barking. So that leads me to sometimes what you're bringing people in for, to get them to know about your product or know about whatever it is that you want to get them to do, involves first meeting the need that they have. And then seeing how your goal and their goal are actually aligned. And so that leads me to, you should also think about any barriers that folks may have to doing what you want. So if what you want is for someone to fill out a form so that you can talk to them more about your dog training service, as opposed to what you want being for them to buy, your citronella dog training collar, then you should make sure that they have more than one way to talk to you. So if your goal is not purchasing, but communication and lead generation, then you should have a simple lead generation form. Don't make it too long, because that'll become a barrier. How many clicks people need to do in order to get to the end of the site can become a barrier. Impatience can be a barrier. So that's really important to have more than one way for folks to get to doing what it is that you want. Maybe in addition to a form, you also have, another way to contact you. Like, hey, come onto our Facebook or our Instagram or our TikTok and leave a comment, or however else folks might be able to contact you. And maybe it's something where they feel more comfortable. Sometimes folks don't like filling out forms. They want to just kind of be on their forum where they always are and do it that way, which is why a lot of people use Twitter and Facebook for customer service. So just examples. Create mini paths to what it is that you want them to do. Make sure that in the process of getting to what you want them to do, that you address what it is that they needed, and that you take into consideration who they are. So in that, we've also kind of been talking about the how will your site meet your goals and theirs. So how will your website design and build and address your target audience's goals and needs and barriers so that you also meet your website goals? That really is the crux of a well executed website and design. So as far as methods of discovery and how you do this, if this wasn't a 24-hour turnaround, we might do surveys. A lot of times when we do government sites, we'll do a survey or a focus group with staff, and another one with the various target groups. In this case, it would be good if, your group, at least your team sat down with each other and try to talk through these points so that everybody's clear on what you're building, and you brainstorm some ideas of, how to best make that happen. So once you've done that, now you need to plan your information architecture. So once you've figured this out, you should kind of have your brains wrapped a little bit around what it is that you're trying to do and how you might best do it. Now you kind of need to sketch that out on a page. And before you even get into the pretty stuff in design, you want to say, okay, well, what pages am I going to need to get users from A to B? So information architecture, planning the pages and navigation of your site, and align it with your discovery findings. So there's a lot of ways to build a site map. I use something called Slick Plan. For this project, I don't think that's necessary. I think you could just use a piece of paper, or you could use a lot of people will use Google Sheets, or they'll use Excel. Just anything where you can kind of chart things out. I would say it's definitely important to try not to get things any more than 2 levels deep. And there's 2 goals with making the sitemap here. One is to see the flow. So how do I get from home to what it is that I want people to do? And the other thing is also to kind of start getting a sense, because as you start like outlining your pages, you're going to start in your head thinking, well, this page, plan is going to work because I'm going to have XYZ information on these pages. And in your head, you kind of have that. So it's also important then to kind of start thinking about, so what pages are going to share a common layout or template? So I know home is probably going to be uniquely designed. Then if let's say I'm selling multiple products, probably have a design for how those lay out, so I have access to the catalog. All my products should have a consistent layout. So now we're at 3 templates. And then folks need to check out, right? So what does that cart look like? And payment, what does that look like? What does that form page look like? What information, in addition to what I have to gather, am I going to gather in order to process that? And then what does the confirmation of that purchase look like? So at a minimum, I'd say I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages that we need to plan as far as how the information lays out. So at this point, I've got some research on how and why I might do what I'm doing. I've got a basic structure here of the pages that I might need, and definitely less is more and everybody scrolls. And I'm starting to form in my head how information might flow consistently on various pages in order to get that across. You notice we're not even at the things are pretty yet. We're still just at the, nitty-gritty details. So now let's talk about design, which I know is a lot of times where everybody thinks that this starts. I don't think that these 2 things happen before we even get here. So mock up your pages. Start with a sketch until you've got the information flow right. Now, so we're not even making it pretty yet. So now, you had that idea in your head about how the information was going to flow on the page. Sketch that out and do that with or without content. Something called Balsamiq, BALSAMIQ. And this here was done in Adobe XD. I don't think for a 24-hour turnaround that you guys need to learn how to do either of these tools. Just kind of giving you a visual example of things that we use professionally. Really, you could just do this on a piece of paper, honestly. And like I said, you don't necessarily need to know the exact content for your product pages, for example. You could say, well, I know that the way each product page should be consistently laid out, there should be some pictures of the product, the name, a little bit of a description, how much is it, the ability to add to the cart. And then this way, at least you know sort of what information formula you're trying to fill out every step of the way. So you do that. If we look back here, you do that with the home page. You do that with the catalog page. You do that with the product detail, and so on. Go back here. So once you've figured this outline out, then you may want to start working out the content that's going to go into each of those pages that you laid out on your sitemap. So once you figured that out, that flow, then someone's gonna need to say, okay, I need content for each of these products that fits this flow. You don't need to do that in order to go to the next step of visual design, but it is one of the things that needs to be done. And so at a certain point, you really may want to split up your team into sort of sub-jobs and skill sets. A lot of website development teams are composed of a lot of different people that specialize in a lot of different areas, from content to coding to discovery and planning, like this. So dividing and conquering based on skill set is definitely a good idea. Now, yay, the part that everybody thinks they start with, the aesthetics. So now you've got a plan, a real good plan, and now you wanna color it in. How's it gonna look? So important to figure out what your color palette's gonna be and just some basic fonts. And important to have just a general sense of how you might use them. It's good to figure that out because then you can just kind of apply that consistently across the site. Planning this in advance allows for consistency. This is done in XD. It used to be done in Photoshop. Some people still do it in Photoshop. Obviously, again, you don't need to know how to use Adobe products. You could certainly go onto, Google, any sort of, color palette maker or whatever, and you could probably find some stuff to help you make these decisions. But just wanted you to see some examples of what this looks like when you are creating these palettes professionally, these products professionally. You need to show a client, here's colors we're going to use, here's fonts, and to your team, so your team can kind of follow, here's what we're doing. How are buttons going to look? How are things going to look on hover? What's the navigation going to look like when I hover on that and it drops down? Just some basic general rules of design consistency. And then you'll apply that to a page. And then so you'll take those same page types that you had sketched out, and then you'll say, okay, so here's what that looks like colored in with these various decisions that we've made about color and font and so on and so forth. So it would definitely be good to plan some of that out as best you can. But again, this is an abbreviated process. So once you've got a sense of how that is going to work, then you're going to build it. And this is where we're going to talk a little bit about WordPress, since that is the example we're going to use in here. So WordPress basics, again, one of many development environment options. If you don't have your own dev environment, we are offering free WordPress space for competitors. It is limited time. I think you get it for the free space for up to a month after the competition in case you'd like to play with your project. Ask in the Discord channel and we'll help you set that up. So we're going to walk through the back end of one of those installs. Just a couple things that I want to say. Like I said, if you're used to Drupal or anything else, go ahead and do that. And either way, just note, yes, some of the options that I'll mention are paid. Some of them are free. Don't think that just because you pay for a plugin or for different templates that means that you're going to win. Things that cost money aren't necessarily better. So I'm going to go into WordPress and then we can talk a little bit about this. Oops. So how you add functionality to WordPress especially when you're not a developer yourself or programmer yourself, is to add some plugins, and those plugins will serve specific programming purposes. WordPress.org/plugins is great for free ones. CodeCanyon.net is a great place for paid ones. Whether it's paid or it's free, I strongly recommend that you look in the reviews. You look at the last time it was updated. Make sure it's compatible with the latest version of WordPress. If there are positive, negative reviews, look at how old they are. Look at, because they might have a lot of negative reviews for a bug they fixed. So, dive in a little bit. And also keep in mind, less is more. The more you add plugins, the heavier your site is, the slower it's going to be, and the more likely it is that you are going to have plugins with code that conflicts. So just put in what you need to accomplish the task. If you're comfortable in CSS and HTML, although there are some non-code ways to make some visual adjustments to templates, you can go into the style sheet. There are resources that I use. I like w3schools.com, not everybody does, and Mozilla's version of that for MDN here is also a good resource. They all talk about, what the different selectors, for CSS, the different properties and so on are, what the different values are, what they can do. I know at least W3 Schools will also give you a place to play with it. And generally they also tell you sort of what's the cross-browser compatibility with it, since, Mozilla, Safari, Internet Explorer, all of them may handle some of these markup languages just a little bit differently. And so sometimes you have to have multiple roles to make sure that things show consistently across different browsers. So then images, just because it's on Google Images and free doesn't mean that you're allowed to use it. So just be clear on licenses. You could certainly use a watermarked image as like a preview or a sample. That's something that we do sometimes when we're not sure if a client really wants to buy the image. Some things about images: make sure that they are the right size for what you're trying to do. I'd say the biggest pixel you can get away with without it becoming too heavy. So without it, getting to be more than, under a meg is going to be good. Make sure it's appropriate. The bigger the image is, I'd say the better the photography really needs to be. One thing I don't have on here, but if you need icons, Icon Finder is a good one. I'm sure there are lots of other icon sites that you might already use. And a lot of the stock imagery sites also have icon sets that are available. Content. Plagiarism is a big deal. It's important to write your own unique content. If you are not sure how unique your content is, this website here, smalltools.com, plagiarism checker, you can cut and paste the content you're about to use on your page in there, and they will tell you compared to scraping the web how unique it is. And these are all important things. So let's take a look at WordPress. So this is my WordPress install that I got from Planetaria. Obviously you can get your own install. Might look a little bit different. You can use something else, as I've said before. But I just want to talk a little bit about it using what we would set you up with as kind of a basic. So In here, what we've got installed is the latest version of WordPress and the 2021 theme, which you can start with. It's customizable, but you are going to have to do a little bit of research on how to make that happen. I'm just going to give you a quick little tour about where you might do some of these things. So one option is you can click here at this bar, customize. And it gives you choices. It says, do you want to change your base theme? I think we also have 2020 and 2019 in here, if you happen to have used one of those before. And then it's got some categories here that you should just kind of click through and play with. So maybe your site identity is dogs. Now then you kind of have to decide how you want this stuff to be, how this probably isn't how you planned on having your design look, right? So in that design phase, sometimes is good to take a look at the base theme you're going to be using, just to make sure that you're designing for something that you know how to make. And then once you're here, it's good to always look back at your design and make sure that you're carrying it out. So here, I had worked out my what my menu items were going to be. I don't have an about page. I can remove that. I do have that store section. In this case, I might want to use a plugin for that. If I had a blog or a contact page, I'd probably keep this. We'll go ahead and just keep it for example. We'll keep this for example too. So you can use this as one way to edit things. When you're done with your changes, you would click publish if you have more changes to make. Just remember you've got, widgets, homepage settings, as well as the ability to mess with the basic design. So again, that CSS that we were talking about. So this is one way. When I'm done, I do this. Here in the back. And just a couple other things here. So I can also go here to edit my menus. Or I'd click it and it would appear. It's important that whatever page that you were wanting to add here, that you've already made it. So pages. Make sure if you do make changes that you want to save, that you save them. Here, they give you some basic pages to start with. You can always add a new one. Check out, things like quick edit, which is where you can just get into some basic stuff right here. Versus what you will probably want at this point, which is going to be the main edit. And that's where you deal with content on the page. WordPress comes with a basic builder. And so all of these are draggable blocks so that you can build out your page. Again, when you are in the design process, probably good to familiarize yourself with sort of what your basic layout options are with whatever you're going to be using. So that if, your plan is to have some sort of list, or you want to have, an image with like a title or whatnot, just that you're making it easy on yourself by using things that are available to you. So before we get too into this, I would like to talk about plugins. There are a couple ways to add plugins. One is you go to WordPress or Code Canyon, and so like those ones that I recommended. find what you want, download it, and upload it. Go to Add New. Be a zip folder, and you can upload. You can also look for one. So in this case, if I wanted to make it easy on myself, I might download the free basic version of WooCommerce. You'll notice it's got a lot of stars. So this is a pretty basic for commerce-related sites. And so if it's in this directory already, then finding it and adding it becomes pretty easy. And some of them will just install, and some of them are more involved like this, and they're going to take you through, a setup process. In this case, you're setting up your store. So if this is what you're doing, you will need to add your products, and you're going to need to kind of look through how to do that. And they do try to walk you through having a store. So this is one option. At any rate, this is an example of adding a fairly involved plugin. Things that you're going to want to look up how to do is you're going to want to look up how to lay out a page. Okay, so here you'll see they've got my cart, my checkout page already. So I might want to go back to my menu here. I want to go back to my menu here. And now add shop and cart. Generally, my cart page also has a checkout. And I should see those in my menu now. See? Of course, you'll need to add products. So, as you can see, it starts building on itself. So once you figure out the plugins you need to most easily do what the goal of your site is, you've added your content, so whether that be product information or contact pages. Simple products. So you're going to want to look up how this all works if this is the direction that you're going. Whatever plugin you decide to use, definitely just look at the basics of the documentation. So here I'd probably add, what size does it come in? So it would become then, a variable product. And you can look up all about that. If I had lots of products, I'd probably have categories so people could filter them. Now, if I go to shop, I see one. There's no picture because I didn't add one. So as you can see, it comes with a basic layout. You should then, of course, adjust it from there to what it is that you want stuff to look like. So maybe that isn't the background color that I wanted. Maybe maybe you designed it to be a white background. Maybe you designed it to be purple. And you can edit the spreadsheet. This is a very, very advanced move. Be careful. You will only want to be in this. I would, unless you know PHP and you know WordPress, I would not start going into any of this stuff. But you could certainly go in here and, if you know what you're doing, add classes and so on in order. Let's see. Other things that you should know. So media library. Best place to put all your stuff. It should be fairly self-explanatory how you add stuff. Right now you've got a 2 megabyte limit if you use one of ours. You really should not need anything bigger than that for this kind of project, but if you do, go on Discord and ask to have that increased. If you do something commerce related, you probably want to figure out payments. Other things, you can use WooCommerce to do things like show your artwork. And if you just want it to be a catalog without payments, you can go into like the commerce settings. And say if you just want it to be in like catalog mode or whatever. So definitely look through it, figure it out. Not going to show you all of it here. This really is your own sort of exploration, but you know what? It's better to try this stuff out and figure out what happens and check than to be afraid to click things. So, and if you do run into trouble, you definitely can, let's say you start working with a plugin and now things aren't working, just go step backward, one step at a time. If all of a sudden things are broken and not working, first start by removing the CSS you added or deactivating the plugin that you activated. Just go backwards one step at a time. So eventually you'll be done. It's important to check your work. In fact, it's important to check your work as you go along. It's also important to have somebody else checking your work who wasn't doing your work but knows what they're looking for. So cross-team checking. Let's just sort of talk about different types of QA. So content design, mistakes happen. They happen all the time. Check your content for errors, or if you're tired of looking at your content, have someone else check it for errors. Check the template against the design. And keep in mind, sometimes it's important, to go back and adjust your plans if in the process of building something you realize that there's a different, better way to do it. That's laid plans. But it is good to be intentional about it. So if you go, you know what, I think actually we should put the product picture on the right. That's okay, just, adjust the plan. And when you're done, check it against that to make sure that where you ended up is in line with what you discussed along the way. Make sure that your plugins work. So if you've got forms, make sure they do what you expected them to do. Make sure the plugin works the way you intended. If it doesn't and you're not using it, deactivate it. Maybe even uninstall it. Confirm it too. So once things are the way you think they're supposed to be, that's what you call kind of pre-beta. The next thing you want to do is you want to check it on different browsers. So the way things look on mobile is often different than the way things look on desktop. Now, the good news is most base templates at this point account for that, and they're going to start stacking as things get smaller and do that work for you. But sometimes things don't stack the way you intended. So it is really good to know how things are going to look. You can do that a couple of ways. There are lots of free emulators. I like I like the developer panel on Firefox, and then there's a responsive view of things. I would at least check at specific common breakpoints of width. So 480 pixels, 640 pixels, 768, 1280, 1920. Make sure things are looking the way you want them to. Minimum, just check at least the current versions of Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, and Safari, and make sure things are looking and working the way you intended. For emulators, I believe Edge has an emulator. That's the newest version of Internet Explorer. Browser Stack is a common one, and those will let you kind of look at not just different sizes, but different browsers. So now you think it's done, beta done. You want to release it? You might have some folks who aren't on your team. Beta test it. Can they use it? So lots of times, even when you've done discovery, you end up kind of doing the design development in the vacuum. Might have been a while since you talked to the folks that you had consulted in the first place. So the best way to check that your user experience, your usability is what you think it is to have a couple people use it. And don't just have them go in there aimlessly. Say, hey, here are the things that I'd like you to be able to do. Go and see if you can do them. Give them amount of time, watch them do it, or without telling them how. Or just tell them and then check in and ask, hey, so were you able to do it? Or you could have them just record their screen and then you can look at it. Do a Zoom and just watch them. Just make sure that their instinct is working the way you thought it would to do what you want to do. And listen to feedback. So, good luck. Remember to reach out on Discord with questions if you need a free WordPress space. And I'd say the biggest things to take out of this are plan, then design, and then build, and then test. And remember that planning and design have a few stages in there in order to make sure that you are building not just a good-looking product, not just a good-looking product, not just a product that you think works, but a product that is actually successful and where you have things that you can measure to make the decision that it is successful. Good luck.